Hello and welcome to this week's Macker to Macker. It's a surprise to find myself back in my own living room again, and hopefully you're out there watching in your living rooms. The idea behind this series is for us to bring you a warm and heady mix of poetry and song from our living rooms to your living room, Macker to Macker, or maker to maker, which is the nearest English equivalent of the word maker. The word Macker just means the national poet of Scotland, and for the moment, that's me. I follow Liz Lochhead and Edwin Morgan. Had Edwin lived, he would have been 100 this year on the 27th of April. But the word Macker doesn't apply exclusively to Scottish poets. In fact, Chaucer was referred to as a Macker by Dunbar, so the word goes back and back. And the idea behind this programme is for us to offer you a really lovely mix of poetry and song, passing the baton between one to the other and between our house to your house. So joining me tonight is Claire Brown, the wonderful singer, coming back to us again, is the fantastic Billy Letford and the wonderful Neil Campbell. I'll be introducing you to them all properly in a minute or two, but first, a wee offering from me. This poem's called Moon Mask. Dark now, try to sleep, my darkling. The moon up there is night shy and hiding. The stars are secrets. The sky is a vast grey blanket. Nobody knows how much we hide, darkling, hidden in our house till morning. The things we never, ever said. The things that are best forgotten. Well, I'm going to welcome into the Zoom room now William Letford. Hello, Billy.
Hi there, Jackie. Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you. Lovely to see you. And Neil Campbell.
Hi there.
Hi, Neil. There you are. You've appeared as if by magic. And Claire Brown. Hello,
Good evening.
Claire. Good evening. Well, we're going to be kicking off tonight's wonderful Macker to Macker. You'll find I say that as often as I possibly can, just because I like the sound of it. It's Macker to Macker. But we're going to be kicking off tonight with really utterly fabulous Billy Letford. He's one of these poets whose work warms the cockles of your heart. It goes straight to your heart. He has a very way with words. He's interested in all sorts of things. He's travelled all over the world. He's helped reform and rebuild a medieval village in northern Italy. He's travelled in the Lebanon, in Palestine. He's travelled in Japan. He's worked in all sorts of different projects, and he's been given bursaries, the Edwin Morgan Travelling Bursary, amongst other awards for his work. He writes about work a lot, and he writes about the human heart, and he's a great observer of people. His poems offer you people, characters, and you get to know them. You almost get to see the window into their very soul. At the moment, Billy is actually in where, Billy?
Thailand. I'm in Thailand at the moment, Jackie.
That's right. Yeah. And how did you end up in Thailand?
I was traveling through Vietnam, and then obviously the COVID-19 situation struck, and I had a flight back home from Bangkok, and I had to make my way to Thailand overland because my internal flights cancelled. And then when I got to Thailand, my international flights cancelled as well, and the subsequent ones that I booked also cancelled. So I found myself kind of stuck here. Stuck here, but quite happy.
Like? It's quite happy because quite safe.
Aye, so obviously it was a little bit strange at first and a bit of a shock, but then it turned out that this is quite a safe place to be. So I mean, I lucked out. What can I say?
Great. And this very first poem that you're going to read, I mean, you grew up in Stirlingshire and you became involved in roofing, and you're one of the few poets that I've met that's also a roofer. And the idea of work and how you work, and the magic, really, if you like, of work informs or runs right the way through your poems, as does the magic of poetry and reading. So I've been dying to hear you kick us off. And your very first poem, you could actually be writing about Thailand, couldn't you? You could have written it right there.
Yeah, that's right. So this is called In a Bamboo Shack on the Edge of a Beach. He read her The Moor by Russell Banks. It wasn't the story, although the story is good, and it wasn't the way he read it. The Scottish accent couldn't quite grasp the Americanisms. The shures and yes became parodies that brought humour to beauty that didn't need it. It was the fact that she lay with her head in his chest, and he felt the rumble of his own voice and the vibration of words gone before. The story he read ends full of snow, and they lay very still. But what to do? How long could they remain there? So he began to trace patterns on her skin with his fingers, and the patterns became circles, and the circles became words. And these actions have a tendency to progress. He lifted her t-shirt over her shoulders, and we know the rest. There are all types of bodies. If you're lucky, you'll find someone whose skin is a canvas for the story of your life. Write well. Take care of the heartbeat behind it. Okay, so while that poem could have taken place in Thailand, the next poem I'm going to read definitely could not have taken place in Thailand. It's called Monuments of the Mind. 3 men sit at the kitchen table. My grandfather smokes Golden Virginia. Making a roll-up has become his ritual. His fingers help him think. So that's what he does. He teases tobacco from his tin. My father smokes silk cut and has a certain way of holding a cigarette, trapping it at the base of his first 2 fingers and lifting it to his mouth so his hand covers the lower half of his face. I don't smoke, but there is a bowl of soup in front of me. Both men like to see me eat. The room has been stained by 2 lifetimes of tobacco smoke, and it doesn't physically exist, but it's where I come for advice. In fact, both men no longer exist, but their voices are as familiar as my own failings. A slam must be onto the table. Well, if that's the way it is, then that's the way it is. That's the way it is, says my grandfather. My father nods his head. He says, that is the way it is. Jackie, you mentioned work, and I spent many years working for my family roofing business, and it's been quite a long time since I worked with them. So now, when I read the poems that I actually wrote while roofing, it makes me feel warm inside because it reminds me of being there. So the next 2 poems were written while I was actually working with my family company. So this is called What Is It? The stonemason said, it's on your heat. Your eyes are like windies and your brain's gone nowhere. Build yourself a palace. The plumber told me not to complicate things. Everything is moving in one direction. We just carry it for a while, then let it go. A Sparky from Partick said it's impossible to see, but you'll know when you've found it. It will stop your heart deed and throw you right out your boots. The labourer stood up It's about strength, son. What can you carry? What can you leave behind? Rough Cast Johnny said it's 3 parts sand and it's 1 part cement. It's all in the mix. The joiner stubbed out his fag. If a man's got the misery of his cell, what does it matter? I looked at the gaffer. Work hard, he said. But that was his answer for everything. Slate Knife McCallum shouted for the roof. It's about perspective, son. Where are you standing? What are you looking at? Then the rain came. Heavy. Bouncing. Pock marks appeared in Johnny's cement. Puddles were jumping around the Sparky's feet. Half Brick McPherson pulled on his waterproofs. Listen to that, he said. This is it. I think this is it. Be prepared. Wear 3 t-shirts and 1 hooded top. Layers are important, they can always come off. Remember your oilskins. It's always raining somewhere. Wear a scarf. Cold air moves down from the neck. Wear gloves. They're useless when wet, but handy if you hit the wrong nail. Pay attention to the moment. The way water drips, the way a spider scuttles. Have a healthy fear of heights. When working from a ladder, know which way to fall. Railings and slabs are unforgiving. Flower beds and fuchsia bushes are better. Practice your scream. When you strike your thumb with the hammer, don't squeal. Roar like a lion. When the pain subsides and you look around, you'll know exactly what I mean. Acknowledge the moon. It was part of the earth once. Its loneliness can make you feel beautiful. Lift properly, because you'll need your back to make your money. So last year, I found myself working in Japan teaching English. Now, I only seen the advert kind of accidentally. Then I applied for the job and I got myself the job. And I ended up in Japan without really knowing why I was there, but I ended up having a brilliant time. So a lot of the time I was teaching students at all ages, and I was teaching them one-to-one in a really small room. And just when I was sitting across the table facing them, and they had a white wall behind them, they just imprinted themselves on that white wall like poems. And so I just started writing these kind of portraits of the students that I was teaching. This first poem is called Language. Izumi writes with a pencil, not the kind that can be sharpened, the kind that must be clicked. She is 40 years old, and the pressure applied is so slight, her words form on the page like spirits. Her voice has a similar effect. I feel the need to tilt my ear and use the cartilage as a satellite dish. It's obvious to me part of her psyche exists in another dimension, one where luminescence is commonplace. And like aligning lenses on a microscope, she is moving separate languages into focus so she can at last translate her own strange, distant, shimmering thoughts. Shadows. Yorihisa was born on the 21st of March, 1945. Forgive me when I say I listen for the tremble of Hiroshima in his rumbling, faltering English. But there is no trace of that falling. Only humour, warm sake, and he admits a late leaning toward red wine. Today's lesson is, do you believe? And I ask him various questions. Do you believe in astrology? No. Do you believe in ESP? No. Do you believe in lucky numbers? No. Do you believe in fate? No. Do you believe in ghosts? This question has an effect on his eyes, a sudden widening. He turns his head just slightly, as if listening to past voices, lost loves. He eventually answers, yes. And of course, he is correct. This small room and these four walls are a poor fit for such company. There's a really, really ancient tradition in Japan of celebrating the turning of the seasons. So you'll hear about it when they sit beneath cherry trees, when the cherry blossoms fall, and they'll drink alcohol, or they'll celebrate the leaves turning colour in the autumn. And this is all part of something that they would call mono no awari, which is like, it's like a celebration of the transient nature of life. Like as if they realise that this everything is just a dazzling circus, and we'd party it for such a short amount of time. And this poem is called Autumn Colours. Hikaku is an elementary school teacher. Her English is spoken as if each word contains a single thought. She presents me with a gift from her trip to Kyoto, a bookmark, handmade, intricate. She tells me she toured various gardens to see the colours, that she was late. The colours had touched the grass. That this is unimportant because tomorrow there is a place in the prefecture where the sun will set just so. That 4 p.m. is perfect. The invitation, like the bookmark between the both of us, is delicate. So fragile, in fact, that to reach for it, I believe, would be to break it. Thanks,
Oh,
thanks, Jackie.
That was so lovely, and so lovely to get a sense of the importance of books in somebody's lives in a kind of circular way, from your first poem that you read there to the last poem, and the fragility of love, and the people that haunt our lives in all the different ways, the living and the dead, both really strongly present in these sequence of very delicate and beautifully written poems.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's strange, the phases that you go through in your life, and you don't really appreciate them when you're there, but when you look back on them, they become so special, you know.
Absolutely. I'm going to bring Claire Brown back in this moment, because Claire is going to sing a lovely song, in a sense, in response to some of your poems. Claire, what have you picked to sing for us on Macker to Macker for your first song this week?
I've decided to do She Moved Through the Fair. It's a traditional folk song. It's been covered many, 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 many times. But the story really fascinates me. Most people know it with the 3 verses, where suddenly she's no longer there. We find out she's not alive. But there is a 3rd verse that is there, and I'm going to put that in this evening. And I just find it deeply, deeply sad, and deeply, it's like a beautiful love story, but yet there's such distance between the two. But the imagery, I think, is fantastic as well.
Great, lovely. Let's hear it.
My young love said to me, my mother won't mind, and my father won't slight you for your lack of kind. Then she stepped away from me, and this she did say, oh, it will not be long, love, till our wedding day. And she stepped away from me, and she moved through the fair. And fondly I watched her move here and move there. And then she went homeward with one star away, as the swan in the evening moves over the lake. The people were saying no to where wed, but one had a sorrow that never was said, and I smiled as she passed me with her goods and her gear, and that was the last time I saw of my dear. Last night she came to me, my dead love came in. So softly she came that her feet made no din, and she laid her hand on me, and this she did say, oh, it will not be long, long, till our wedding day.
Wow, such an extraordinary song, that, and so poignant. Just so poignant. The idea of ghosts in that song, and the way that you can have this extreme beauty as sitting alongside tragedy like that. It comes to you as a kind of a shock what's really going on in that song, because the melody of it takes you someplace other.
Yeah, I think the great thing about these traditional songs is that they're yours for interpretation as well. You know, you might hear one person saying, "Oh, well, you know, she was ill and it was very tragic," and then actually maybe it's a lot sadder than that. Maybe it's that she left. Maybe it's that she died of her own accord. You know, like it could be. It's up for you to decide what it is and make it your own. I think that's what's really special about these kind of songs.
Claire, I know from experience, the front door to this apartment is right there, and I know from experience that sound bleeds down the corridor. So it's like 1:30 in the morning here. So your beautiful Scottish voice has just been dancing in that corridor. And I just hope that there's somebody close by where the sound crept under their doorway and they could hear it. That would be perfect.
Or you don't get evicted.
That's lovely, Billy, and for some reason that song particularly reminded me of your Monuments poem, because in that poem you have such a sense that you're really 3/4 of the way through the poem before you realise that both the men in the poem are dead, and yet the poet's still actually going to them for advice and going to that particular room for advice, and there's something extraordinarily comforting about that, discomforting and comforting at the same time.
I remember my dad telling me that he thought when his father died it would really, really affect him, but he told me that when his dad actually died it didn't affect him as bad because he knew his dad so well that he could ask him a question and he would just know the answer. He would already know the answer because his voice was so strong inside his head. So really the poem came from my dad.
Yeah, and there's that sense that their voices are really, really present. And how much do you feel as a poet that you're actually recreating some of the voices of the people that have made a massive impact in your life?
Sometimes I feel like a thief, Jackie. You know, it's like people tell you stories and the stories are so strong that you just take what you experience. And so I feel like I just channel what they tell me. You know, my Uncle Casey's another person that I used to work on the roofs for him, and he used to give me so many poems just with his patter and his lust for life.
But then you make it your own. Sorry.
Aye, Claire. I'm not saying I'm plagiarising them, although they would say I'm plagiarising them. But I'm just taking what they say and then reform it, and then I make it into something. But it's them that's giving me the energy. You know, it's them that's giving me the spark and the ideas.
When did you first write a poem about one of them? What was the first one you ever wrote about one of your family or friends?
I think it was something called the Speak of the Gods, or a poem called the Speak of the Gods, and it was about my Uncle Richard and my Uncle Casey. That was the first one I wrote. Aye, about them. I can tell you it right now if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's really short. Okay, so
go ahead.
They speak of the gods. He says Hades, and I see Richard wearing his welding mask, kneeling beside a stripped out citron. Sparks from his torch lighting one side of the garage wall. She says Zeus, and I see Casey, framed against the sky, bloated and happy, carrying cement across a tiled roof.
Isn't that fabulous, Claire?
Yes, it's fantastic. I think your language is fantastic, and it's so you instantly just access the imagination of the listener or the reader. It's just wonderful, really wonderful. I love how you just made those two into they are your gods. It's fantastic.
And I love how much your work generally, I mean, across your work, if you read all of your work together, from Bevel to Dirt and Dirt to Bevel and more besides, and all your new poems too, you get a real sense of the portrait, but you get a sense of people living inside their belief systems in that poem, when you're asking, you know, what do you believe in, and then you get to the no, and then you get to the ghosts. Do you believe in ghosts? And then the four rooms and the four walls tell the story, and it seems like an obvious question then. And I think that's really how you juxtapose the so-called normal worlds and the extraordinary worlds seems to be something that really interests you.
I just, you know, you can never ever really describe how you write, but there's just something that happens. I mean, anybody who's artistic will know it. So Yori Hissa, I did actually go through that with him, and he was like, no, no, no. And when I said ghosts, and he said yes, straight away I was like, there's something happening there. That's just like, I could have burst out laughing when I was teaching him. Do you know, I was like, but then you can't do that. So I knew there was something that was going on. I didn't realise it, and then it takes a while. You go back, and then you start writing, and then you try and get to what was going on. You know, but again, it's just like the same with Casey and my Uncle Richard. He gave me that. You know, he was such an amazing man that it was his energy that gave me that.
Yeah, but it links into your energy, like Claire was saying, and your ability to capture people, because not everybody listens or notices people or takes people in, and not everybody has the empathy to take people in that kind of way, or to capture the complexity of people. And I think one of the things I really love about your writing, and amongst others, is the huge heart, but also the complexity that people are not stereotyped in your poems. It's so easy for people to just typecast characters and have them all one-dimensional, but actually your characters live and breathe in your poems in the way that characters often do in novels and on much wider canvases. But your idea as a writer of the canvas is kind of present in your poems, particularly when it was present in that first one, and I'm looking to find a love that will marry or match the canvas of your skin. But do you think of that in a sense when you're writing? Do you think of the canvas?
I think I see the page as a canvas. Do you know that white space, that A4 page? And then when I experience something, I see that kind of like A4 page as like a picture frame, and I view that as a canvas, and every poem's a picture, they shape it and stuff like that. And so it's a kind of visual thing as well. But I don't know, the canvas of life, I don't know if I view it like that. I mean, it's a very lovely compliment that you've gave me, Jackie, but I really actually don't have a clue what I'm doing. I just all of a sudden start writing something and then hope that something nice happens, and then sometimes it doesn't.
And has that stayed the same for you from when you first started publishing? Your first book came out in 2012, didn't it? And we're 8 years on from that. Does it feel similar to you, the kind of the frothy excitement and the energy of the poem, or is it harder to achieve or to come to? Is every poem a surprise to you in a way?
I'm always surprised when I'm happy with a poem. I'm always surprised. In fact, no, that's a lie. When I first write a poem and I look at it, I think, that's amazing. That's the best thing I've ever written. Then I put it away for 2 days and I look at it and I say, that's absolute. And then it takes me a while to work through it. But so it is a real surprise when I write something that I like. Do you know,
Yeah.
I'm still surprised that I'm actually here and still writing poems, and that I've got poems published. Sometimes I have to give myself a slap across the face that it actually happened, you know.
Did it seem a surprise to you that it happened then?
Aye, it did. I mean, I was quite confident that I was going to get something published, but it took me 7 years to get my first poem published. So when that happened, I was pretty surprised.
And when you were published, when you got an extraordinary response to your work, because people just love your work, and you felt so different and so fresh, and you just broke into the scene, and people were just like, who is this guy? They're just so excited by you because of the way that you write about work, as well as the way that you write about people in the heart. And so your work really struck a chord with people. And did you find that interaction that you get from publishing, did you find that changed in any way your nature to the canvas of the page?
I really enjoyed doing readings at that time. Do you know what? Like, I still enjoy doing readings, and I was really surprised at how much energy that gave me. Because when you start writing, you're not really reading out to a lot of people, and you're writing on the page, and you're in that void. And when I started doing readings, and I started to get that energy for it, I really enjoyed it, and people were so kind and so helpful. And do you know what? Loads of people helped me along the way. Loads of people said, I think you should do this, your writing's really good, I think you should do this. So there was people like really ushered me along.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's lovely to hear. Well, at this point, I'm going to bring Neil Campbell back into the room, because Neil's work shares a lot. Hello, Neil.
Hiya.
A lot in common with yours. Neil is an extraordinary poet whose work has made a massive impression on people. You won the inaugural Edwin Morgan Award for your book Moontide, and you've made quite an impression with your poems. You write about fatherhood, you write about the night, you write about the heart as well, and your work has got an extraordinary and beautiful lyricism. And you also won the Robert Louis Stevenson Fellowship. So you've travelled too, like Billy, and travelling has fed into or influenced some of your work in different ways. And you come from South Uist in the Hebrides, which is an amazing. I've been in South Uist, and I love Uist. I love the Macker. Sounds similar to Macker, but it's not. It's spelled completely differently. Means a completely different thing. But I love that landscape, and in a sense, your work contains landscapes. So I'd really welcome to Macker to Macker. This is both of yours first time on Macker to Macker, and if you're out there watching and this is your first time to Macker, a very warm welcome to you too. Neil is going to begin with reading poems that kind of complement beautifully, I think, Billy's wonderful set there. You're going to start us off, aren't you, Neil, with The Night Watch?
Thank you very much, and a real pleasure to follow Billy's poems and the song there as well. I mean, talking about Uist and the geography of it, it was a bit strange with the second book. So basically, I ended up looking after my son. My wife went back to work, and I stayed home looking after our son Soren for a few years, and so I got that experience. But everything just closed in. Most of the poems are just, everything outside the room is gone, and it's just poems about being in quite an intimate, enclosed space. This poem, The Night Watch, I'll just begin with this. It's 1 a.m. and someone's knocking at sleep's old battered door. And who could it be but this boy I love, calling for me to come out into the buckthorn field of being awake? And so I go, finding him there, no longer talking, but now crying and crying, wanting to be held. But shh, what did you want to show that couldn't wait until the morning? Was it the moon, because I see it, the first good bead on a one bead string? Was it the quiet, because I owned it once, but found I wanted more? And so a lot of these poems are, especially around about the first few years of Soren's life. And I'd read all the books, because before your child's born, you do actually have time to read books. And so I read all the, what to expect when you're expecting, despite Katie being the one who's expecting. I read the first few years book, I read the first few months book. And, I was ready for this, period after about 3 weeks, apparently, where, sometimes your child's behavior can change quite dramatically, where their senses just start to all kind of kick into gear, and they become quite a lot more emotional around about 3 weeks. So I was ready for all of that, but I wasn't actually prepared for the first illness he had. However old he was, a few weeks or a month or so old, and you've got this thing, I mean, tiny baby, and they're shaking, and there's nothing you can do to soothe them. You can't talk to them, you can't, placate them, you can't reason that, this will pass. You just kind of wait for the Calpol to kick in after half an hour, and things get a bit better. And so this was a real shock, and eventually, a while after, I wrote this poem. So his first illness. Little boy, my little cornstalk boy, shaking through your fever. Little silver coin, my little silver coin in a pocket full of papers. Little shaking chest, little shaking lantern, can you hear your father's voice? I'm frightened, but I'm here. Little life, little breath, little clockwork car, starting and restarting. If the road seems long, it's because it is. And just one last poem from Nocturne. So this is the last poem in the book, and what's quite strange is your body gets used to these, like the sleep deprivation, the lack of, surviving on a few hours sleep, and then your child starts sleeping, and you go through. Well, certainly I went through a phase of not actually sleeping as much as at night, so you're there up in the same dark room, but without the thing to be doing. And so there's a little bit of introspection here with this last poem. It's called Good Night. No curtains should be open at that time, but ours weren't drawn and the cold world looked in. 3 years into his life, come to the window, sleep hadn't found my door again. So up, I watched the morning's morning open out, the frosted ground clean as an envelope. Awake, so tenderly awake, I felt like the lamp lighter of some old city when the city's lit and the crowds dispersed. So much was love, so much was work. I took the small spark post to post, I cradled it and let it guide me to my darkling house. Good morning, here's the brightness in the dawn. Good night, here's love like a faint snowfall. Good night. So those are the poems from Nocturne, and it's kind of difficult to kick back into gear into writing. I don't know if Billy feels the same. Like after books come out, especially for me having two books that have been quite involved in a theme like Moontide was a lot. I'll read a few poems from that after, a lot about Uist and growing up and being from the islands, and then Nocturne so much about parenthood and life involved there. But this is a newer poem. It's just called Exiting the Library. Exiting the library. Night's coming for the librarians, darkening the windows behind the desk. The returning books have found their homes, name to name, back on their shelf. The last of the borrowers head out. The stragglers at the workspace desks pack bags to the tunes of one last sentence. It's a time for Barnard's somewhere else, landing on a branch, the two wings folding somewhere inside the wood's cold breath, closing the way a book might close, softly, or a door closed when everyone has left. So just to go to the poems from Moontide. So this first poem, so this was written before the book had come out, and you realize that there is not so much a marketing side of things as a way that if people are going to write about you, it'll be easier to do so if they can pigeonhole you into a particular type or group or something along those lines. And I just wanted to write a little bit about how what we might do as poets might impact the work, but also the work, how it might then go back and impact the writing. So this is it. This is called The Work. If I have to, then let me be the whaler poet, launcher of the knife, portioning off the pink cut, salt trim and fat, tipping the larger waist of the side of the boat, and then to have the poem in the drawer. Or perhaps let it be the poet nurse, hearts measured by a small watch, balmer, washer of old skin, stopping by the door in the night. Or the oil driller poet, primed for the buried flame and heat, lips to the black, aware how the oil fields in the evenings are lit like her own staggered desks. Or the horse trader, or the smith, or the waiter poet, offering the choice wine, polishing to the light, the bringer of the feast and the bill. Jackie mentioned the Robert Louis Stevenson Fellowship, which, to be honest, was probably one of the most important things that happened, because I think I'd had a few poems published, no pamphlet published, no collection published. This was around about 2011, and I applied for the Robert Louis Stevenson Fellowship, despite probably not meeting the guidelines. I think they said you've got to have a few publications, which I think meant books, but I took to mean as poems. And so I kind of snuck in there with the application, and they ended up sending me, and it was 5 weeks where it was the first time anybody had really given that trust. You're a writer, go write. You're a poet, just spend some time there and see what happens. And this poem essentially was written there after visiting the Musée de Rodin, so the Rodin Museum in Paris. And it's Rodin sculpts the kiss. The idea being the kiss there is a statue with the two figures embracing, and how he must have created it, not head and head, arm and arm perhaps, but created one figure first and then the second figure, and for a moment there being one figure, a kiss, enacted, but the other person not there yet. Rodin sculpts the kiss. There, with a swung hammer, is a man in love. There's crafting and there's breaking of squared marble. There, the white dust and the scattered chippings of what's fashioned out. How bare it looks, half made. A figure leaning in to kiss what's not there yet. The arms encircling nothing but a rougher offshoot of themselves. And yet the kiss is held, as though the stone the figure cradles receives it. Here is a strange knowledge and a strange trust. His heart can sense the stone heart aching in the block. His lips can taste the mountainside that shapes into a mouth. And just as a last poem, I'm going to read one called The Letter Always Arrives at Its Destination, which essentially is inspired by a quote. The letter always arrives at its destination is a Lacan quote, which I didn't actually read the lecture that it's from, but it came up in a book that I was reading. So I got it secondhand, as most things. And the idea is, like there inside this quote, is the letter doesn't always arrive at its intended destination. But in that maybe falling short or being misplaced, that something else might open up and be allowed in that mistake. And I read it and I immediately thought about being on the islands and throwing bottles out to sea when I was much, much younger. Being quite isolated there on the islands, would go to the mainland once, a year, for like a week or 10 days in the summer. So being quite divorced from, modern life. This poem here, then. The letter always arrives at its destination. Then I wrote often to the sea, to its sunk rope and its salt bed, to the large weed mass lipping the bay. The small glass bottles would be lined along the bedroom floor, ship green or church glass clear, such envelopes of sea mail. Only on the day of sending would a note be fed into each swollen, brittle hull. I had my phases. For so long it was maps, maps of wader nests, burrows and foxes' dens, maps where nothing was in its true position, my landscape blooming from the surf. Later, I write my crush's names onto the paper as a small gift. The caps then tested and wax sealed. None ever reached my dreamed America, its milk white shore, as most would sink between the pier and the breakwater, and I would find that I had written about the grass, the drowned sand again, and to the sunken dark I'd sent all the light I knew.
That was just fantastic and really, really beautiful, the way that you took us on a kind of a journey through the darkness and into the light, through the anxiety of nighttime fatherhood and insomnia and not getting enough sleep to that last poem, which kind of deals with the imagination in all sorts of different ways. But a real sense of journeying I found in that whole collection that you read there.
No, I appreciate that. I think that's maybe part of the mindset of when you grow up just facing the sea constantly. And even, when I came to this, where did I live? Edinburgh when I was 16, and then Edinburgh and Glasgow and St Andrews and Huddersfield and Leeds and Edinburgh and everywhere else we've been, my wife and I just moving around together. So there's always been a sense of just moving on and just things in flux and change, but maybe that being normal and fine. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and that last one of the letter always arrives at its destination is really, really wonderful, because it's got something very old about it as well as very new. And it seems to me that your work marries both the old world and the new, and perhaps that's the Islander in you as well. There's something timeless in the qualities of your work.
Yeah, I think I'm very unfashionable on that side of things, but again, I'm quite comfortable with that. Maybe it is the Islander side of it, that you're used to things that do last, that you appreciate the things that are there and have gone before, but I've always been drawn to that side of poetry, that lyricism, that quietness. It was such a revelation to come up, to find poetry. I mean, when I was like 18, 19, and not to realize it had been missing from my life, but it brought and married so much of what I did and knew with this new thing that I just discovered.
How did you find it?
Very much by chance. I was reading, in terms of contemporary poetry, so I'd gone to university to study history with the idea of being a history teacher. And the great thing about the Scottish universities is they make you fill up your columns. So I was like, what am I going to do? So I put down an English literature course, and essentially from being a history student filling up with English literature, and ended up sliding more and more down the literature side of it, dropped history altogether, and just not looked back.
It's interesting, isn't it? These kind of accidents that happen in life that take us down one route as opposed to another. And at this point, I'd love to bring Claire Brown back into the room. Claire's a wonderful actress as well as a singer, and it's extraordinary that Claire has two. Hello, Claire. Hello again.
Hello.
It's extraordinary that you have two completely, well, complementary as well, but completely different in some ways. The way that you approach a song and the way that you approach being a character. And this next song that you're going to sing is actually from a play that you were in, called which I wrote. My birth mother. So that's a kind of an extraordinary thing to me. I've not heard this song for a long time. Could you tell us a wee bit about it for people that don't know about the play?
Yeah, so the play was Manchester. Sorry, you just cut out there just as I was just before you handed over. But the play was called Manchester Lines, and it was written by yourself and directed by Wills Wilson and designed by Amanda Studley, and the music was composed by the wonderful Erlyn Wallen. And we were given a kind of playground of a set to work in, really, weren't we? It was a lost property office, and it was things lost and found, and searching for things and finding things and discovering things about ourselves. And the song that I did is called "A Letter Isn't the Alphabet," and it's actually really it's really weird coming back to this after, what is it, almost 10 years, isn't it, that we did it. And it just feels there's something great about coming back to a song after, or a part or something like that, when after you've had time away from it, that you come back to it and something's bedded in and something's learned that you didn't even know needed to be learned. And I think that's what's really special about this song. I'm sorry you're not going to hear Erlyn's wonderful music with it tonight, but I hope I do it some justice. You get to hear your words, which is great.
Lovely.
Shall I go? Okay. My mother hid my letters from my sisters for years. She put them in the sideboard with the deepest drawer. Alone at night, she pulled them out and read them again. Stared at the photographs of the grandson she never met. A letter isn't the alphabet. My mother hid my photographs for years as if I wasn't getting older, and the lines appeared and my writing less legible over time. How are you doing? I'm doing fine. The letters now are old and lined, fading, yellow lines and white lines, blue ink and black disappearing. The times when I dotted my eyes, just like her, just like my mother. A letter isn't the alphabet. And the lines appeared under my eyes, and the lines appeared under her eyes. All the years and all the lies, out of the dark wood and into our lives. My sister found my letters in the sideboard. She had missed all my years. I had missed all her years. She wrote me a letter. It said, "Can I help fill the gaps?" A letter isn't the alphabet. A letter isn't the alphabet.
Oh, extraordinary to hear that again, and to think of the ways, the things that are said and the things that are not said, the secrets that we have in our lives, the letters that we get to write and the letters that reach the destination and the ones that don't. How did you find that, Neil? Song?
Incredible. I mean, it's just, I think that's what's been so nice about this series is just listening to all these different songs go alongside the poetry and that to be natural again, you know, to wed those two different things, the singing and the poetry. Love it.
Mm. I was
Thank
glad
you.
that you did the one about the letter. It felt perfect to,
Perfect, yeah.
to choose that song for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the way the sense that you get a kind of a searching in your work, Neil. You're searching in a sense for this structure, for the sculpture, for the
Yeah.
kiss. You're searching in a sense to hold on to some things that you can't necessarily hold on to, but you can in words. You can fasten the words to things, and so I thought that those two went really well. That song with that last poem that you read, but also with the idea of being in France and seeing Rodin and thinking about form, really thinking how forms come to us.
And it was just as well about art. I mean, to be in a place where it's tactile, you go and you touch the sculptures, you know, they're there under the rain, they're there under the sun, and it's art that you really can physically engage with. You know, that was in revelation, it was incredible.
I touched a Rodin in New York, but it wasn't free to do that. I got in
Yeah.
terrible trouble. It was like the Secret Service came up behind me and I just got a hand on my shoulder and was like, "Don't you do that again." And I felt like I was 5 years old. Still touched it.
Well, it's been really, really fantastic having Claire Brown back on Macker to Macker, and really wonderful to welcome you, Neil. That was a fantastic set and gave us lots to think about and lots to discuss. And great to have Billy Letford here with us. We're going to do something a bit different on this week's Macker to Macker, because each of the three of us are going to read one final poem to say goodnight. There's been so many poems, in a sense, that have been embracing the night in both of your work, or embracing the time of year or the time of day, and just how particularly poems do try and capture the moment. And the one that you're about to read really captures the moment of a birthday. And there's a fine tradition in poetry of poets writing themselves birthday poems. And I particularly love this one because it's kind of unexpected, and yeah, it's just raw and unexpected and brilliant.
Thanks, Jackie. But before I say the poem, I want to say, Claire, go on yourself for touching that Rodin sculpture. And also, Neil, you said there's a quietness to your poems, and you're right, but they're so powerful. They're like incantations. They were amazing.
Cheers, Billy. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so this poem is called Happy Birthday, and it was written while I was in Japan, and when I was there, coming up to my birthday, I really saved back. But it wasn't the type of a saved back that's like an ache. It was a really sharp pain, one that would put you on pause, where you would do something and all of a sudden, so anyway, it's called Happy Birthday. At midnight, with a full bladder, you rise from your warm bed and stand unsteady in the close dark. You listen. The pinching of a spinal nerve has a song like a tree with branches of light. The song flashes outward from your backbone like winter, and you hang there, a single piece of fruit that blushes and screams within one cycle of always. You return to a dark that's blindingly quiet. You're 1 year older and you're covered in piss.
I love it. And Neil, Would you read us a wonderful leaving poetry?
So yeah,
Leave poetry.
this is it's a poem after a Spanish poet called Luis Munoz, and it's a version of his work. It's just called Leave Poetry. Leave poetry for those who are diminished or half-formed, for those rare, unnamed birds on the bird table, for those who want to leave but never do, for those who talk, sing, curse, all without speaking, for those who are alone, for those who never share their evenings between two, for those who, like mules, prefer the burden and the journey through the unmapped provinces of painful years. And don't search for the youth. Leave poetry for when you need the guide of its magnetic north. For the nights you wake, your throat too dry for prayer, it can be your water. For times you need a second imagined life, for times you wish to sleep a restless sleep, because it watches us even until death, with its unflickering eye and open mouth that sings of nothing but beauty. For it gives us no explanations, and this is sufficient, and this is insufficient. Leave poetry, my friend, for the shadows that retreat at morning.
Wow, fantastic. Really, really wonderful. I love the idea, the emerging idea that came out of both of your work and your songs, Claire, of the idea of being in attendance of the poet, being able to offer solace and advice and some company and some comfort, of the idea of the poet being able to understand things that perhaps other people can't, and a place that poetry becomes for people, a place to go. And that's what we've been hoping to provide with this series, Macker to Macker, that poetry should offer you some solace and a place to go, and that marrying of poetry and song should be hopefully the finest of company for you. It's been wonderful to have you all with me tonight. I'm just going to read one last wee poem, and then I'm going to ask you about your favourite bookshops and the Macker for next week. So I thought I'd read a little goodnight poem, since night has featured so much in the poetry that we've heard and on this wonderful edition of Macker to Macker. So this poem's called Feary Good Nicht, and fear is the old Scots word for friend, as you probably know, but I pronounce it feary in this poem because it gives me more rhymes. Feary Good Nicht. When you've had the last one for the road, a Linkwood, a Talisker, a Macallan, and you've finished your short story and played one more time Nacht und Trauma with Roland Hayes singing sweetly, and pictured yourself on the road, the one that stretches to infinity, and said good night to your dead, and fathomed the links in the long day, then it's time to say good nicht, Feary, and lay your Highland head on your feather pillow, far away in England, Canada, New Zealand, and Curien, Curien, Curien. The good dreams are drifting quietly doon, like a fig o' Malini, my feary, my dearie, and you'll sleep as soon as a peerie, and turn slowly towards the licht. Good nicht, Feary, Feary, good nicht. I'd like to invite everybody back in so as they can say good night to you. It's been really lovely to have Billy Letford on Macker to Macker, Claire Brown on the programme, and Neil Campbell. Thank you so much, all three of you, for making this such a special, wonderful evening and for sharing your poetry and your song with us. It's been really, really, really lovely to be here with you. And before we go, I'd just love you to tell me, what's your favourite bookshop, Billy?
My favourite bookshop is an independent bookshop It's called Stirling Books. It's in Maxwell Place in Stirling. It's right across the road for an Irish pub. So you can pick yourself a pint and take your time going down the stairs because it's a basement bookshop. Just get in there, get yourself a coffee to wake yourself up and peruse the books. You'll find something that you'll...
Wonderful, wonderful. What about you, Neil?
I would say Topping Books in St Andrews. It's just essentially you go in and you don't have anything in mind, and it's that dangerous temptation when it comes to poetry, all the different things they might have on the shelf. So they've got quite a wide catalogue of different things, letters and such. So yeah, it would be that bookshop.
Well, I love the idea of poetry as a dangerous temptation. I hope you've all been very dangerously tempted tonight by our wonderful poets and by our fantastic singer, Claire Brown. And before we go, Billy is going to tell us who the Macker is going to be next week. Billy.
The Macker is going to be Adjua Ando. Be there or be square.
Well, thank you. And thanks so very much for joining us, everybody. And thank you at home for joining us too. Good night. Bye-bye.